I'm of the understanding that when we have media members in positions of power with really, really big platforms and voices that just reach far and wide, especially if they come from my community, especially if they look like me, they should use those voices to help the community that they come from. Right? I'm of that understanding. I think that's kind of how it should be done. But that doesn't always happen. Sometimes we get media members who like to play the middle, who like to both sides of the argument, for lack of a better term. They don't want to tell you that they left. They don't want to tell you that they right. They just want to say, I'm right down the middle. I call it as I see it. And I am just of the belief that in this time, like I said, we're not in normal times. In this very time, I don't think that you can play the middle and be about what you say you about for real. I don't think that you can play the middle. So when I'm thinking about this, one name consistently pops in my head. And this is a person that I used to have a tremendous, tremendous amount of respect for. Enjoyed watching their programming. Thought it was very entertaining. The person that I'm talking about is Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith has made his transition from sports pundit to political pundit. No problem with that. A lot of people talk about sports and politics. My issue with Stephen A. and his large voice and huge audience is a lot of the rhetoric he's spewing is disparaging to our community.
But I got to tell you something. It's much.
Look, I'm going to take. Look. I'm already on it. I'm going to take a. Let's take a listen at Stephen A. Smith talk about how black people find Donald Trump relatable. Let's listen to this and then we'll discuss.
But I got to tell you something. As much as people may have been abhorred by Donald Trump's statement weeks ago, talking about how black folks, he's hearing that black folks find him relatable because what he's going through is similar to what black Americans have gone through. He wasn't lying. He was telling the truth. When you see the law enforcement, the court system, and everything else being exercised against him, it is something that black folks throughout this nation can relate to with some of our historic, iconic figures. We've seen that happen throughout society. So no matter what race, what ethnicity you may emanate from, we relate to you when you're suffering like that because we know we have. And
you see, hearing that clip, do you understand what my problem with Stephen A. is? Do you understand what my problem with Stephen A. is? He was on Fox News doing that, by the way. He's speaking to a Fox News audience on how black people relate to Donald Trump. Because he's being victimized in the justice system like black people have. He talked about some of our political leaders. Who are you talking about? You talking about King? X? Chairman? Huey P. Newton? Fred Hampton? Who are we talking about, Stephen A? What is Donald Trump going through in the justice system that they went through? Because you're talking about people who were wrongly convicted and murdered by the justice system, who attacked wrongly, versus Trump, who was on trial for trying to overturn an election, who is on trial for raping a woman, amongst other things. This is not the same. Black people don't relate to this shit. This sounds as stupid as when they put out that fucking gold sneaker and they went on Fox News saying, black folks like sneakers. Or when his mugshot came out. Black folks know about some mugshots now. That's how the fuck you sound. And this is the problem that I have with Stephen A. Smith. That is a weird-ass parallel for somebody who researches, for somebody whose job it was to be a journalist. For him to go on that news station and parrot that bullshit talking point as if it is somehow representative of the black community. I'm 35 years old. I've been black for 35 years. I don't look at white criminals being criminally charged justifiably. I don't look at that as the same as somebody being charged with somebody having drugs planted on them, or false accusations being made up about somebody and having to serve prison time. I don't look at that the same. It's not the same, Stephen A. Smith. And that's the problem that I have, particularly with a lot of media and a lot of black media. Why are we pushing bullshit misinformation? No, we do not relate to Donald Trump because he took a mugshot. No, because he's going through the justice system. The people that we relate to that went through the justice system unfairly, we get that. Donald Trump really tried to turn over an election, Stephen A. That's not unfair prosecution. Donald Trump was found liable for rape, Stephen A. That's not unfair prosecution. Now we're trying to figure out what everything that's going on in the Epstein files and all this, but this is not unfair prosecution, Stephen A. And that's the issue that I have with this walk in the middle, play both sides bullshit. Because a time will come where it's like, what are we doing? This rhetoric is harming our community. A time will come where you have to choose. You either love your community or you're standing over there. You can't be in the middle. You can't be in the middle. You popping up with the Bill O'Reillys and the Tucker Carlsons and people of that ilk. The Sean Hannitys. You popping up with them, Stephen A. That's not. You see why some people would have a problem with that? You see why some people from our community would have a problem with that? I sure do. I sure do. Stephen A. has, it just seems like he's gone out of his way to be this contrarian. I told you, like in a previous episode, I didn't understand why he went out of his way to say he regrets voting for Kamala Harris. I don't understand that. When Kamala Harris was trying to protect the very community that you were from, as opposed to what this administration is doing. Stephen A., do you think 300,000 black women would have lost jobs under Kamala Harris? Because I sure as hell don't. I don't know why he's spewing MAGA talking points. I don't get that. I don't get that. Let's listen real quick to Stephen A. about what should have been done by the Biden-Harris administration. Let's take a quick listen about why they lost the election. Let's listen.
This is where I come back to. This is where Stephen A. Smith comes into play. Because what pisses me off to no end is that had you done your job prior to the election, this wouldn't have been necessary. Had you paid attention to the economy? Had you paid attention to affordability? Had you paid attention to safety in the streets? Had you paid attention to our borders instead of having open borders, allowing Trump to make it look like we were being invaded, for crying out loud, because of the extreme with which he embellished illegal immigration being.
Stephen A. says if Biden and Harris focused on immigration, if Biden and Harris focused on affordability, even though he admitted that, he said embellish. He said Trump embellished about the immigration, what was happening with immigration in this country. It's not an embellishment, ladies and gentlemen. Trump flat out lied about what was happening in immigration in this country. And because so many media people like Stephen A. kept pushing this narrative and lie, this is how we got to where we are. This is how we got innocent Hispanic people being pulled up off the street and put into detention facilities, even though they don't have any criminal records. Because he lied, Stephen A., not embellished. I know you're trying to make it cute because you don't want to offend anybody, but he lied. He lied. And you're lying. You are lying, saying that the previous administration didn't want to focus on the border. Stephen A., you're a journalist. And by all accounts, from what I heard, a damn good one. Albeit a sports journalist, you're still a journalist. So you still have some of the basic tenets of journalism, research being one of them, right? You got to research. You got to cite your sources, Stephen A. It's not hard to find that there was a bipartisan border security bill that Trump decided to kill because it would have gave the Biden administration a win. Even though the bill was described as a conservative's wet dream, the Dems gave so much to the right for the security bill. Trump killed it. You don't believe me? Let's take a listen to senior GOP Senate member Mitt Romney about Trump killing that bill.
President Trump has indicated to senators that he does not want us to solve the problem at the border. He wants to lay the blame for the border at Biden. And the idea that someone running for president would say, please hurt the country so I can blame my opponent and help my politics is a shocking development.
Do you think this is what he wants, the issue, Donald Trump? This is why he's doing it?
I think the border is a very important issue for Donald Trump. And the fact that he would communicate to Republican senators and congresspeople that he doesn't want us to solve the border problem because he wants to blame Biden for it is really appalling.
So what does that say that what he is saying carries weight here? What does it say that Republicans are listening to?
Well, it's shocking that politics plays a role in this building. Absolutely shocking. I can't imagine that's the case.
Ukraine is on the line.
But the reality is that we have a crisis at the border. The American people are suffering as a result of what's happening at the border. And someone running for president ought to try and get the problem solved, as opposed to saying, "Hey, save that problem. Don't solve it. Let me."
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mitt Romney, famously ran against Barack Obama for president in 2012, member of the Republican Party, a senior GOP senator, just stated that there was a bipartisan bill in place that both sides agreed to. See, that was a hallmark of Joe Biden's presidency. That was a hallmark of his presidency. Being able to work across the aisle. Joe Biden wasn't perfect. Not by a long shot. Joe Biden wasn't as progressive as I wanted him to be. But he got a lot of shit done. And with more support from the Senate, would have got a lot more done. But Stephen A. said if they would have focused on the border, they would have got elected. I'm here to tell Stephen A. that was Mitt Romney telling you they were working on the border problem long before Trump was elected, but Trump used his influence to kill the deal, to kill the bill. But you know that, Stephen A., because you're a journalist. right? You researched that. You came on your show saying, you know, they should focus on border crossings, but you already knew that, right? You already knew. You already knew that there were many times where they tried to get a resolution for people at the border, humane ways, might I add, that got gutted by the influence of Donald Trump. Similar to the peace talks in Gaza. Remember when Netanyahu was meeting with Donald Trump? When Donald Trump was running for president, he wasn't an official world leader. And people were saying Trump told Netanyahu not to agree to any peace deal in Gaza because it would look good for the Biden-Harris administration. You remember that, Stephen A., right? So you, again, a media member, is blaming the Biden administration for something that Trump is doing, right? It's Biden's fault that Trump used his influence to kill the border bill that would have helped at the border, right? That's Biden's fault. Stephen A. also talked about affordability. Maybe if you would have focused on affordability, maybe you would have won the election. Ain't that what Stephen A. said? Right? I'm going to share my screen, ladies and gentlemen, so we can all look at this together. This is what's called the framework for Build Back Better. This was a bill that was issued by the Biden-Harris administration to help tackle one aspect of affordability. I only picked out one for this conversation. This particular bill that didn't get passed by 2 votes in the Senate, by the way, Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. Let me just, since we're talking about affordability, I live in the Chicagoland area. It can get real expensive. One of my wife's and I biggest cost is childcare. I told her the other day, man, it's like we damn near paying for a private school tuition for a 4-year-old to go to daycare. It is ridiculously expensive. Biden-Harris administration knew that. So I wanted to go over key points in their plan that Stephen A. said they didn't talk about, but I watched the vast majority of campaign rallies, interviews, went to website links, all that. They talked about it every single fucking time. But Stephen A. said they didn't, so I want to point back to the Biden White House archives so we can see their plan for one aspect of affordability, that was childcare. It says here, Linda is a working mother in Peoria, Illinois. She works at a local manufacturing facility as a production worker. Earns $40,000 a year. She is pregnant with her son, Leo. Shout out to Peoria, not that too far from Chicago. $40,000 a year. Working as a manufacturer. Pregnant with a son. Once Leo was born, if the Build Back Better would have passed, 2 votes, Kirsten Sinema, Joe Manchin. Why the fuck didn't y'all vote yes? Once Leo was born, Linda begins receiving child tax credits of $300 per month, $3,600 annually when you file your taxes. $3,600 to help cover essential costs, groceries, rent, medicine, right? As Leo grows up, the government helps cover his costs for daycare, guaranteeing that Linda doesn't pay more than 7% of her income on child care. Linda makes $40,000 a year. Let me get out my calculator, ladies and gentlemen. We can do this together like a school experiment. Linda makes $40,000 a year. Minus 7%. That's $2,800 for the year. Right? $2,800 for the year. You divide that by 52 weeks. Under this plan, you know how much Linda would have been paying weekly for child care, Stephen A.? Because it's a big affordability issue. Linda would have been paying about $54 a week for childcare funded by the government if we would have voted this particular bill into place. So don't talk to me about they didn't tackle affordability. We see it right here. Let's keep going though. When he turns 3, pre-K is free. So when mom has to go to work, say she has to go back to work at 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever the maternity leave is when you get it. Say she has to go back to work 12 weeks. Government is helping fund the cost of child care. She's paying $54 a week. Until he turns 3, then it's free. Is that not tackling affordability, Stephen A? Is that not tackling affordability? When Leo leaves high school, he's able to enroll in community college thanks to extended Pell Grants and investment in community colleges. All in the bill. Your child care covered, and you can get in school, get you a good job. Look at that. Leo lands a union job and a wind turbine technician. Now you're making good money. You got a good union job, benefits, good pay raises. Later in life, Linda needs home care and hearing care. Thanks to Biden plan, Linda can access affordable hearing care through Medicare, and Leo was able to afford home elder care for his mom. Why the fuck would Stephen A say they're not talking about affordability? That's kind of wild, right? Actually, not kind of wild. Shit is wild. Because they're clearly talking about affordability. Right? Clearly talking about affordability. I don't get that. Stephen A said they weren't focusing on the border. We just didn't talk about the bill that Donald Trump killed. Stephen A said they weren't focusing on affordability. Just laid out plan. That was just one of the issues. We didn't talk about the $25,000 down that Kamala Harris wanted to give to first-time home buyers. We didn't talk about the grants that they wanted to give developers, the breaks that they wanted to give developers to build more homes, to have more homes, the goal of more homes to bring down the overall cost of the overall housing cost, which will eventually bring down the overall cost of rents. Biden being the first president to walk a union picket line. Right? Is this not affordability and working class stuff? Or are we just pushing bullshit MAGA topics? Stephen A?
And pervasive in this country. Had you focused on that and the real issues, instead of focusing on woke culture and cancel culture and making sure everybody echoed the right pronouns and making sure everybody marched lockstep in parroting your speech, you'd have won the damn election.
Stephen A said if they would have focused on affordability, if they would have focused on the border, if they would have focused on the right issues. I mean, they focused on affordability and the border. We just talked about both, right? Right? But then he said something else that's interesting to me. Instead of focusing on woke culture. Now, Stephen A, again, is from my community. We know what the word woke means. We know where that derives from, right? It means to be socially conscious. But as of late, the president, his administration, his cronies, takes this word, flips it, and makes it something disparaging. So much so that a lot of the media talking heads, I ain't woke. I ain't woke. When Stephen A knows what that means. He knows what a dog whistle is. He knows what coded language is. So why would Stephen A go on his popular Sirius XM show that broadcasts on YouTube where he has over 1 million subscribers and say the left shouldn't focus on woke issues and making people address pronouns. Whoa, wait a minute. Hold on. Let's tackle one thing at a time. First of all, what does woke mean? Because I know what woke means to Trump and Vance and Ron DeSantis. What does woke? We shouldn't focus on woke issues mean, Stephen A. Should presidential candidates not focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, something that directly impacts the community that we share, Stephen A? Something that directly impacts the black community? Are you saying that presidential candidates shouldn't focus on that? Because that's what they consider woke, Stephen A. Again, I ask you, 300,000 black women have lost jobs under Donald Trump. Do you think those same black women lose those jobs under Kamala Harris? Purge of federal workers, black federal workers. Purge of black people in high military positions, high political positions, replaced by white folks. I don't understand what Stephen A. is talking about with woke culture, Stephen A. You have to explain to me what that means. Because nobody is forcing you to put a pronoun in your bio if you don't want to, Stephen A. The only thing they're saying is people should have the right to use the pronoun of their choice. And that's all this shit is about, Stephen A. Nobody is telling you to put he, him in your bio, Stephen A. But someone else should have the right to without being disparaged. You should be able to identify how the fuck you want to identify without being disparaged, Stephen A. You're a black man. Like you so often like to remind us. You so often like to remind us that you're a black man. So, and I believe you're an educated black man, which is why I have the frustrations I have with you. Because you understand what the fuck a dog whistle is. And that's what woke is, Stephen A. That's how they're using it. So why are you using it in the same way, black man? Someone is talking to you who used to have a great deal of respect and reverence for you, sir. I used to have dreams of one day I'm going to get up there to ESPN and talk hoops with Stephen A. And I'm going to smoke his boots. And I still would smoke your boots talking hoops, by the way. Be clear. But we're not talking about hoops right now, man. We're not talking about some shit that we can go back and forth on the barbershop about a GOAT debate or who the best point guard in the league is or what's the best defense in the league or who gonna win this many games in a 7-game series. We're not talking about that. We're talking about legislation that directly impacts people's lives, Stephen A., and how you're parroting misinformation. They didn't focus on affordability. Every campaign I seen didn't focus on affordability. You admitted Trump, you said embellished. I said lied. You said Trump embellished about the border, meaning it wasn't as bad as he said it was. But the media made it seem it was way worse than what it was. You can talk about record lows of people crossing under Biden after the executive order that he implemented got in place because he thought that Congress should work out a deal and he didn't want to do it himself. Which in the grand scheme of things, I guess is how things should be done, right? You didn't talk about a president who was willing to work with the other side as opposed to one said, kill this deal because it's going to make me look bad and it's going to make this guy look good. You didn't talk about that. You just said they didn't focus on affordability. Why? Because that's a MAGA talking point, Stephen A. And the more and more you talk, you start to sound like a Fox News pundit. Now, that may not mean nothing to you because you've been on Fox News several times. But I'm here to tell you, Stephen A., whether it's Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, Scott Jennings, whoever else, these people have not historically been good to this community, to the black community. So I ask you again, sir, why do you sound like a group of people who have not been historically good to your own community? And ask yourself, is that something that you need to change? See, smart people know the play that you're trying to do. Smart people know that you're trying to be in the middle so you can grab audience from this side and audience for this side. But like I said before, Stephen A. Smith, these are not normal times. These are not normal times. People who believe black people should not exist are actively running the military, Stephen A. Think about that. The Department of Defense, renamed the Department of War. Who's running that, Stephen A? Pete Hegseth? Did you ever take a look at Pete Hegseth tattoos, Stephen A? The man that Donald Trump put in charge? Do we see what's happening, Stephen A? How scary and dangerous it is when you're sending militia to black neighborhoods? Stephen A, do you see how scary that is when you're vowing to give police immunity, Stephen A? When people financing your campaign are doing Hail Hitler signs, do you see how dangerous that is, Stephen A? Of course you do, because you're smart. You're not stupid. So, for you to have a research team to be having access to all of this knowledge and information, how could you ever say one administration didn't focus on affordability or borders or try to force woke culture down your throats, and the other administration never gave you one single plan? They only told you that they were getting rid of immigrants in this country and giving money to the rich. That's their plan. They didn't tell you how they were going to lower costs. They didn't tell you how you were going to have affordable health care. They didn't tell you any plans for public education and college outside of closing the Department of Education, outside of wanting to close Job Corps that really benefits our community, Stephen A. See, this is some black shit for me. This is some black shit for me, Stephen A. And I don't know if you made so much money that you feel you don't need to be as concerned about the issues of our community because you're trying to generate an audience and maybe, that isn't your primary concern. But some of us know it's real trouble right now, Stephen A. And the president and the vice president and anyone else in his administration is stoking the flames of racial tension. 300,000 black women lost jobs, Stephen A. It's not the time for this walk in the middle bullshit. I hope one day, I pray one day, I get to say this to your face. I pray one day that we get to have a conversation or debate or something like that where I can get my point across to you and you look me in the face and tell me that you care deeply about the same community I do while you sit next to Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly and Tucker Carlson and smile when Donald Trump says you should run for president. Come on, man. This shit is shameful. And if there is any ounce of integrity that you have left, I implore you, brother, please do not go this way. Do not continue down this path. Do some shit that we can be proud of that's more than HBCU week. Because that's cool. That's cool. That's fly. You put on your jacket, you go to the schools, that's fly. But 5 days a week plus your radio show plus whatever going on, it's damn near feel like 7 days a week. A lot of the times you are parroting points that are hurtful to this community. And that's why people are upset with you right now, Stephen A. It's not that nobody is jealous. It's not that nobody's trying to take you down or trying to stab you in the back. It's that at a time where your community needs you the most, you're playing in the middle. That's why I'm upset. I'm not speaking for nobody else. That's why I'm upset. As someone who is a fan, who tuned into your show every day, who listened to you on Sirius when you had the Mad Dog deal before that, when you were just doing the Stephen A. Smith show, who enjoyed your point of view on a lot of things. That's who I'm speaking as, Stephen A. What you're doing right now is not what we need. And you're treading dangerously close. You're treading dangerously close to Van Jones territory. You are treading dangerously close to Van Jones territory. And you know what's after Van Jones territory, baby. Jason Whitlock territory. And I know you don't want to get there. So please, about face, turn the ship, call Wilbon, have some real discussions. I would love to talk to you one day. I still got hope for you. Not this shit you're doing. This shit is corny. Take a quick break and get back to it. This is The Large Picture.